is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Seneca, on the brevity of life.
You think you have time. You believe it, the way a man believes his pockets are full until the moment he reaches in and finds them empty. Right now, as you sit here, something is being taken from you, and you have not noticed the theft because it does not look like theft. It looks like convenience. It looks like a notification, a scroll, a glance that costs nothing and ends up costing everything. Seneca stood in the middle of Rome nearly 2,000 years ago and told his friend Paulinus a truth that still cuts today, sharper now than it did then. He said that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. Nature did not make us poor in time. We make ourselves poor through carelessness, through the constant surrender of hours we will never see again. This is not a video about managing your schedule better. This is a confrontation with the thief you have been letting into your house every single day. 5 rules are coming, drawn directly from Seneca's own hand, from a letter he wrote to warn men exactly like you against exactly this kind of death, the death that happens while the heart is still beating. Before we get to the rules, you need to understand the debt you have already accumulated, because you cannot fight a theft you refuse to see. Every system of power in history has learned the same lesson. If you want to take something from a man without a fight, do not announce it. Do not send him a bill. Let him hand it over willingly, a little at a time, so slowly that he never feels the weight of what he has lost until the day he finally stops to count it. Money has a paper trail. Every transaction leaves a mark, a number in an account, a receipt in a drawer, a warning when the balance runs low. Time has none of this. There is no notification that tells you your hours are running out. There is no red number blinking on a screen when you have spent 40 minutes on something that gave you nothing back. Seneca understood this better than any accountant who ever lived. He wrote that men are careful guardians of their property, yet when it comes to the one possession that can never be replenished, they are the most reckless spenders of all. Think about what you protect in your life. Your money sits behind passwords and locks. Your home has an alarm. Your reputation you defend fiercely, correcting anyone who dares to misrepresent you. But your attention, the very material your entire life is built from, you hand over to anyone who asks, often to those who did not even have to ask, because you offered it before they finished ringing the bell. This is the invisible tax. It is not collected by a government or a bank. It is collected by every design built to interrupt you, every platform engineered to make stopping harder than starting, every ping that arrives dressed as urgency while carrying nothing of actual weight. You do not feel it happen, not because it is painless, but because the pain is distributed so thinly across so many moments that no single instance ever hurts enough to make you stop. A minute here, 90 seconds there. None of it feels like loss in the moment it occurs. It only becomes loss when you try to remember what you built, what you finished, what you became during the hours that were quietly withdrawn from an account you never learned to check. Seneca warned Paulinus that he was allowing other men to consume his life while he stood by, watching it happen, offering no resistance, as if his days were an inheritance too vast to ever run dry. This is the first truth you must accept before anything else can change. You are not simply busy. You are being taxed, invisibly, continuously, by forces that have every incentive to keep you from noticing the collection. You have probably thought about what you will leave behind. Men do this instinctively, whether they admit it or not. They think about the money they might pass down, the name they carry, the mark they hope to leave on the people who knew them. But there is an heir closer than any child, closer than any relative waiting on a will, and this is the man you will become if you survive the next year, the next 5 years, the next decade. He is standing at the end of a road you are building right now, today, with the exact hours you just learned you have been losing without notice. And here is the uncomfortable part. You are cheating him. Every hour spent chasing a notification that led nowhere, every evening dissolved into a feed that offered nothing but the illusion of company, is an hour subtracted from the inheritance that man was supposed to receive. He needed that hour. He needed it to build the skill you keep postponing, to deepen the relationship you keep neglecting, to recover the health you keep spending tomorrow to fix. Instead, he receives your leftovers, The scraps of attention that remain after distraction has already taken its cut. Seneca spoke of men who guard their fortune fiercely for their children and grandchildren, refusing to let a single coin slip through their fingers, and yet allow their own days, the very currency their future depends on, to be spent by anyone who asks. Ask yourself honestly, who benefited from your attention yesterday? Was it the man you are becoming, or was it a stranger who designed a feed to hold you a few seconds longer than you intended, profiting from every moment you failed to protect? This is not abstract. This is theft with a victim, and the victim is you, just wearing the face you will have in a year you have not lived yet. A soldier does not train half-heartedly and expect to survive the battle he has not yet fought. Yet most men spend their present moments as though the future version of themselves is someone else's responsibility, someone who will simply appear, fully formed, without the discipline required to build him. He will not appear. He is being built, or he is being cheated in this exact hour, by the choices you are making with your attention right now. The rules that follow will not simply help you manage your day. They will determine which version of that man actually arrives to collect what you have, or have not, left him. Somewhere along the way, without ever signing a single document, you appointed a court to judge your worth. You did not choose the judges. You did not review their qualifications. You simply handed them the gavel the moment you started measuring your day by their reaction to it. This court has no robes, no chambers, no formal session. It lives inside a feed, inside a follower count, inside the silent tally of who noticed you and who did not. Seneca warned against the danger of living according to the opinion of the crowd, calling it a kind of slavery far heavier than any chain, because a chain at least announces itself. This slavery disguises itself as connection. It tells you it is harmless, that checking, that watching, that scrolling through the verdicts of strangers is simply staying informed. But notice what actually happens in your chest when a message goes unanswered, when a post receives silence instead of approval. That reaction is not curiosity. That is a defendant awaiting sentencing, and you built the courtroom yourself, one login at a time. The algorithm has no interest in your flourishing. It was not designed by men who study Stoic philosophy or who care whether you become disciplined, wise, or whole. It was designed to hold your focus long enough to sell it to someone else, and the most efficient way to hold a man's focus is to make him believe his worth is still being decided, that the verdict has not yet come in, that one more glance might finally settle the question. This is why the scroll never satisfies. The court never adjourns. There is always another case pending, another notification waiting to reopen an inquiry you never should have allowed in the first place. Epictetus taught that some things are within your power and some are not, and that confusing the two is the source of nearly all human suffering. The opinion of a stranger who will never bear the weight of your choices is not within your power. Yet you have handed it the authority to determine whether your day was good or wasted, whether you were worthy or forgettable. Reclaiming your time requires something more radical than simply reducing your screen time. It requires revoking the appointment altogether, dismissing a court you never should have convened, and returning the verdict on your life to the only judge who was ever qualified to deliver it, which is you, standing in front of the work you actually did, not the applause you did or did not receive for it. No man wakes up one morning suddenly ruined. Ruin does not arrive that way. It arrives the way water arrives in a ship with a single small crack, not through a violent flood that announces itself, but through a slow seepage that goes unnoticed until the vessel is already low in the water and sinking faster than anyone can bail it out. This is exactly how a life is lost to distraction. No single scroll destroys a man. No single notification, answered out of habit rather than necessity, ends a career or a marriage or a body of work that could have existed. It is the accumulation, the relentless repetition of small withdrawals that individually look harmless and collectively amount to bankruptcy. Seneca observed that men do not count the days that have already slipped away from them, treating the past as though it were a debt already forgiven rather than a resource already spent. This is precisely the trap. Because each individual distraction is so small, the mind refuses to register it as a loss worth mourning. You do not grieve 90 seconds. You do not hold a funeral for a scrolled feed, and so the losses go uncounted year after year, until a man looks up and finds that the book he meant to write was never started, that the skill he meant to master remains where it was a decade ago, that the relationship he meant to deepen has grown quietly distant, not through any single betrayal, but through 10,000 small absences that felt, at the time, like nothing at all. This is the particular cruelty of silent bankruptcy. A visible collapse invites help. Friends notice. Warnings are given. But a slow leak invites nothing because nothing appears to be wrong until the moment it is too late to easily repair. The remedy is not a single dramatic gesture. It is vigilance applied consistently, the willingness to treat small moments of attention with the same seriousness a prudent man treats small sums of money, refusing to dismiss any of it as too minor to matter. A fortune is not lost in one transaction. It is lost in thousands of transactions too small to notice and reclaimed the same way, one guarded hour at a time, by a man who has finally learned to count what he spends. Epictetus taught that life is like a play, and that you are an actor in a drama whose length and role are chosen by another. You do not choose how long the performance lasts. You do not choose every circumstance placed before you on the stage. But there is one thing you were always meant to control, and that is how you play the part you were given. Somewhere along the way, a dangerous confusion took hold. Men stopped seeing themselves as the actor and started living as if they were also the author of every scene, waiting for permission, waiting for direction, waiting for the next line to be fed to them by whatever appeared on the screen in front of their face. This is what distraction actually does to a man over time. It does not simply steal minutes, it steals authorship. A life built on reaction, responding to whatever notification arrives, whatever headline appears, whatever feed refreshes next, is a life performed entirely from someone else's script. The tragedy is not that you are an actor. Epictetus never asked you to escape that role because no man can. The tragedy is that you have forgotten you were ever handed a pen at all, that within the boundaries of your circumstances, you retain the power to choose your response, your discipline, your focus, and that this power has quietly been signed over to algorithms that write your next scene better than you do, because they have studied your weaknesses longer than you have studied your own strength. Picture two men handed the exact same difficult circumstance. One reacts instantly, pulled by every impulse and interruption, letting the scene write itself through pure reflex. The other pauses, recognizes what is his to control, and delivers a response worthy of the character he intends to become. Both are actors. Only one remembers he is also, in the smaller sphere that was always his, an author. Reclaiming your time is not only about removing what distracts you, it is about picking the pen back up, scene by scene, hour by hour, and refusing to hand your next line to whatever screen happens to be closest when the moment arrives. Not everything that announces itself as urgent has earned the right to interrupt your life. This is a distinction most men never learn to make, and the failure to make it is precisely what leaves them at the mercy of every buzz, every red notification, every subject line engineered to sound like an emergency when it carries no real weight at all. Urgency, the genuine kind, is rare. It shows up in a burning building, in a child who has fallen ill, in a decision that truly cannot wait until morning without real consequence. This kind of urgency has always existed and always will, and no philosophy asks a man to ignore it. But the urgency that fills most of a modern day is counterfeit, manufactured deliberately, dressed in the language of importance while carrying none of its substance. A message marked urgent that could have waited a week. A headline demanding immediate outrage over something that will be forgotten by the time the sun sets. A small red circle on a screen, engineered by people who understand precisely how the human nervous system reacts to the suggestion of something unresolved, something waiting, something that might matter. Seneca warned that anxiety is often born not from real danger, but from imagined danger, from a mind untrained to distinguish between what truly threatens it and what merely startles it. The counterfeit urgency of modern life exploits exactly this weakness. It does not need to be real to work. It only needs to feel real for the half second it takes you to reach for your phone. And by then, the theft has already occurred, because your attention responded before your judgment had the chance to intervene. A disciplined mind does not treat every alert as a command. It pauses, even briefly, and asks whether what is calling for its attention actually deserves it, or whether it is simply another counterfeit dressed convincingly enough to pass inspection in the moment. This single pause, practiced consistently, is the difference between a man who spends his day reacting to manufactured emergencies and a man who reserves his urgency, his real and limited supply of it, for the moments that have actually earned that response. Learning to spot the counterfeit is not paranoia, it is literacy. The same literacy Seneca demanded of any man who claimed to be free rather than merely unchained. Seneca once urged a man to demand an accounting of his own life, the way a strict creditor demands an accounting from a debtor, insisting on knowing exactly where every hour had gone, refusing vague answers, refusing the comfortable haze that lets a man believe his days were full simply because they were busy. Most men will produce a ledger for their money without hesitation. They can tell you close enough what came in last month and what went out, where the waste occurred, where the discipline held. Ask the same man to produce a ledger for his time and watch the silence that follows. He has no answer, not because the information does not exist, but because he has never once forced himself to write it down. This avoidance is not accidental. A man who refuses to read his own ledger gets to keep believing whatever story is most comfortable, that he is simply busy, that there are not enough hours in the day, that circumstances beyond his control are responsible for the work still unfinished. The ledger destroys this comfort immediately. It does not lie and it does not flatter. Written honestly, it reveals precisely how many hours were spent on a feed that offered nothing back, precisely how many evenings dissolved into distraction dressed as rest, precisely how far the gap has grown between the life a man claims to want and the one his actual hours confirm he is building. This is why so few men keep one. It is easier to remain vaguely aware of the problem than to confront its exact shape in writing. But vague awareness has never disciplined a single habit in the history of any man. Only specific, uncomfortable clarity does that. Seneca did not ask Lucilius to feel bad about wasted time. He asked him to count it, because counting is the beginning of ownership. And ownership is the beginning of change. A man who tracks where his hours actually go, even for a single honest week, cannot return to his old carelessness without a level of self-deception that becomes harder to sustain once the numbers are sitting in front of him. The ledger is not punishment. It is the first tool of a man who has decided to stop guessing about his own life and start knowing it, one accounted hour at a time. There is a particular kind of poverty that has nothing to do with money, and Seneca named it clearly when he said that no man is free who is a slave to his body, and that this slavery often extends far beyond flesh into something less visible but equally binding the mind itself. A man who owns a house can lock the door. He can decide who enters and who is turned away, and this authority over his own property feels obvious, unquestionable. But ask that same man whether he exercises the same authority over his own mind, and the answer, if he is honest, is often no. His mind is not owned, it is rented, and it is rented constantly, to whatever platform, whatever notification, whatever fragment of outside noise happens to arrive first in any given moment. A rented space is never treated the way an owned space is treated. A man does not renovate a rented room with the same care he gives his own home, because he knows the arrangement is temporary, that someone else holds the deed, that his investment could be interrupted at any point by the actual owner reclaiming what was always theirs. This is precisely what happens to a mind that has never been reclaimed. It cannot build anything lasting because it is never fully present long enough to lay a foundation. Every deep thought is interrupted before it matures. Every moment of genuine focus is cut short by an external landlord demanding attention be handed back over. Seneca insisted that true freedom is found in self-possession, in belonging entirely to oneself, rather than existing at the mercy of external demands, whatever form those demands take. In his time, those demands came from patrons, from social obligation, from the endless performance of public life. In your time, they arrive through a screen disguised as connection, as information, as entertainment too small to seem dangerous. But the effect is identical. A mind that can be claimed by anyone at any moment, for any reason, belongs to no one, least of all to the man carrying it around inside his own skull. Reclaiming your time ultimately means reclaiming the deed to your own mind, refusing to keep renting it out to whichever bidder happens to interrupt you next, and building finally on ground that is entirely and permanently your own. Not everything that asks for your time deserves to survive the asking. This is the discipline most men avoid, because cutting feels like loss, even when what is being cut was never serving the life they claim to want. Seneca lived this principle with a severity most modern men would find uncomfortable, stripping away obligations, relationships, and habits that produced nothing but the appearance of a full life, while draining the substance from the one he actually intended to build. He did not treat every demand on his time as equally worthy of consideration. He treated his days the way a ruthless editor treats a manuscript, willing to remove an entire passage he once admired if it no longer served the larger work, understanding that sentimentality toward what should be cut is simply another form of self-sabotage, wearing a gentler mask. Most men never apply this same blade to their own routines. They keep the app because deleting it feels dramatic. They keep the obligation because declining it feels rude. They keep the habit because breaking it feels like admitting failure. And so the manuscript of their life grows longer and longer, cluttered with passages that add nothing, while the parts that actually matter get buried further beneath the weight of everything nobody had the courage to remove. An editor does not ask whether a passage is enjoyable to read in isolation. An editor asks whether it earns its place in the larger work and cuts without apology anything that does not. This is precisely the question Seneca demanded men ask of their own commitments, their own company, their own daily habits. Does this earn its place in the life I am building, or does it merely occupy space because removing it would require a discomfort I have been unwilling to face? The blade is not cruelty. It is respect for the manuscript, a refusal to let mediocre pages dilute the ones capable of greatness. A life edited without mercy toward what does not serve it becomes sharper, clearer, and infinitely more capable of holding the reader, meaning you, meaning the version of yourself still waiting to be written, fully and finally, into the story you were always meant to tell. Return for a moment to where this began. A debt you never agreed to, collected quietly, hour by hour, by every force that profits from your inattention. 9 truths have passed between that opening and this closing line, and each one has stripped away another excuse, another comfortable illusion that let you believe the theft was somehow smaller than it actually is. You now know the tax was invisible only because you refused to look. You know the heir being cheated wears your own face just a little further down the road. You know the court judging your worth was never qualified to hold the gavel, and you were the one who handed it over. You know the bankruptcy was silent, the authorship was stolen scene by scene, the urgency was mostly counterfeit, the ledger was left unread on purpose, the mind was rented out to landlords who never once considered your flourishing, and the manuscript of your life still carries passages that should have been cut long ago. This is the full weight of what has been taken. But debt by its very nature implies something else, something Seneca understood better than almost any man who ever lived, which is that a debt can be settled. It is not permanent. It is not identity. It is simply an account waiting for a man willing to close it. Finally, the question in front of you is not whether the theft was real. You have seen enough now to know that it was. The question is whether you intend to keep paying it quietly and visibly, the same way you have paid it every single day up to this point, or whether you close this video and become, starting with the very next hour, a man who reads his own ledger, edits his own manuscript, and refuses to rent his mind to anyone who has not earned the privilege of holding it. Seneca did not write to men who had already mastered themselves. He wrote to men still in the middle of the fight, still capable of choosing differently before the account closed for good. You are still in that fight. The rules have been given. The debt has been named. What happens next belongs entirely to you and to no one else who has ever tried to collect it.